Okay, so it's been a couple weeks since I finished this, but I did finally finish this, and so I need to talk about it. Tales of the Abyss. So, for reference, I did play the PS2 version. So, if there's any, because I am going to talk about the performance issues the game has, because it has a lot. So, if there's any issues with the performance, or the gameplay, or anything like that, that gets fixed in the subsequent versions. Say versions plural. I know there's the 3DS version. I don't know if there's any other, so I'm putting an S there just in case. But any problems that are fixed in subsequent versions, that's great. I'm glad they got fixed. They were present in the version I played, so the score will take that. No pun intended saying the score, fuck. But my ultimate score, will still keep those problems in mind. Abyss was the fourth game in the series I tried playing after Symphonia, Berseria, and Vesperia. But I ended up dropping it at some point. It was a little bit after the first third of the game. I just kind of never got back into it. But I played Arise and said, I want to play this one as well. Clay was interested in playing it, so we were playing it together until about 10 hours or so in, to which point he just dropped. He's like, I don't want to fucking do this anymore. Because we were playing it together, it was like, all right, because of our schedules, there was only a certain amount of time where we could actually play it, and sometimes we were doing other shit. Progress was very slow, so in my downtime, I picked up Eternia. So Eternia is technically the sixth game, I believe I said this in the video, is the sixth I have started, but was the fifth I have finished. But now Abyss is the sixth I have finished, which means now I can have an actual top 5, not just by default. And quick spoilers on that, Arise is the one that gets bumped from the top 5. I like the others I have played, some more than others, but I'm really fucking mixed on Arise, but not really going to say much about that game. I want to really just focus on this piece of shit. And I say that affectionately because I do like it, but I also mean it genuinely because there's a lot of things I don't fucking like. Before going into any specifics, a couple other things I want to say. Number one, my final time, I wrote it down, I think it was 49:01, it was 49 hours and 1 minute, and Clay dropped out. I did not save over that other save file, just in case he ever wants to pick it back up. He doesn't. But just in case, so it was 11 hours and 11 minutes in. So I played the other 38 hours by myself. My expectation, my 100% genuine expectation when I picked the game up, both the first time and the second time, was that it's going to be rough early, because that is the game's reputation. Luke is just the most annoying, bratty, piece of shit of a main character imaginable. But then shit happens, and then he becomes really good, and by the end of the game, he's arguably the best protagonist the series has seen. The rest of the cast, kind of similarly. You might not like them at the start, but by the end of the game, once they've gotten some depth, some development, they are a lot of people's favorite cast. The story is really deep, it's really good, it's really interesting. It might be bumpy in that first third, but by the end, it is super interesting, it is engaging, and it's beautiful. And it all culminates, while not the final boss, but it all really culminates in that duel between Ash and Luke, with a remix of the game's main theme and opening as the boss music, and it is going to leave me crying. I am going to be weeping from just all of the emotions I have in this moment. And by the end of my 49 hours and 1 minute adventure, I am going to feel like every fucking second was worth it. That I am glad I played it, that I'm even glad that the first third kind of sucked, because it being so rough makes the next 2/3 that much better. You have to go through the muck to get to the mountaintop, and it's the best thing I've ever played. That was my expectation. Maybe not necessarily that it would be like, oh yeah, this is my favorite game of all time, but it would be something to really, really challenge that, and that's not the case. I feel like, again, we'll get into the specifics really soon, but my overall thought is, it starts bad. I almost hate everything about the first third. Then it gets notably better. I start to actually gel with the cast. Combat is getting a lot more fun because I have a lot more options. Shit is picking up. And then by the end, yeah, it did get really good. There's a lot of, there's a lot of things, again, gameplay-wise, story-wise, even sometimes presentation-wise. I'm like, this was a lot better than it was at the start of the game. I am genuinely glad I made it this far. I wish it wasn't 50 hours. I wish this was more like 35 to 40. I feel like with the amount of enjoyment the game gave me, I kind of would have preferred it to be about 10 to 15 hours shorter, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I think the best way I can sum up my thoughts is, I think the game is really good, but its weaknesses for me keep it from being genuinely great. So now we'll get into Now we'll get into some of the specifics, starting, of course, with presentation. I don't know if you can see, I missed a little bit. There was a little bit I got on my chin. But starting with the presentation. So the first thing I need to talk about is the audio. So having just come from Eternia, where the voice acting isn't good, it's old PS1 era voice acting. It's charming, I enjoy it, but it's not good. Listening to genuinely fantastic voice acting throughout the game was kind of a godsend. Now, I feel like, yeah, every now and kind of like with Symphonia, there might be a line here or there, or maybe there's like one minor character's performance, or like, that's kind of off, it's kind of hit or miss, but I felt like all the main characters, like, they nailed it. It was really good. I really got to give a shout out to Yuri Lowenthal, of course, playing both Luke and Ash, and making them, they do sound like different people. I think it's really good. When it comes to the music, when I was first playing it, I wasn't getting into the music. It's not that I thought it was actively bad, but it just wasn't leaving much of an impression. And it wasn't until a lot later in the game where I just kind of sat for a moment and thought, what the fuck am I smoking? The music's been good the whole time. I think the battle themes are good. I think the overworld theme is good, but I don't like it specifically because I associate it with travel. And I'll get to why I hate travel when we get into the gameplay, but it's like it's a lot like in Eternia, where like the Von Altia theme is good, but every time it plays, I'm like, this is a thing I don't like doing. I don't like having to navigate the ship. So I associate this song with shit I hate. But aside from that, I do think the overworld theme in Abyss is good. And some other songs I really wanted to shout out. Karma, which is the opening. Meaning of Birth, which is the Ash fight, which is a remix of that. By the way, Karma, there's the instrumental version in the English version of the game, which is both the PS2 and the 3DS version. And then the original Japanese version of the game had the vocal version. So I am used to the instrumental version. I will not say I prefer it, because I do think the vocal version is better. I do think the instrumental still slaps, though. All of Van's themes, because you fight him twice, it's at the end of the second act of the game, and then it's the final boss. I think all the themes that play when you fight him are fucking great. The Batical theme, the theme in Grand Kokoma, I like a lot. The Chigo Woods and the Isle of Ferris. I think those are all of my favorites. And not to say that if I didn't include a song, I thought it sucked or anything. I was like, these are the ones that like, this is really good, this is really good, this is really good. Yeah, we're fucking clicking. The next thing, though, is, so the audio I think is really good. The visuals, to me, though, are kind of hit and miss. When it comes to the character models. What does that say? Okay, sorry. I just want to make sure I know who that's at. With the character models, it took a little bit of getting used to, because at first there was just something kind of off about them. Maybe it was because the last couple I had played, like, Symphonia has that chibi art style, which for me is always timeless. It never really looks bad. Eternia as sprites, and I think they look really good, and as I've also said, sprites to me are also very timeless. They don't really ever look bad. the 3D models in Abyss, they don't look bad, but it kind of took me a while. I was like, this maybe hasn't aged super well. But then as I was playing the game more and I got used to it, I thought they looked fine, with one notable exception. I don't know what it is about Ion's sprite. It looks super off. I don't know if it's intentional. Let me go ahead and say this before I say anything else. Probably should have made it clear just in case it wasn't. This is full spoilers. I'll go and make sure to put that in the description as well. I'll give a quick countdown. But yes, there will be full spoilers to all character beats, plot details, etc., etc. 5, 4, 3, 2. I don't know if the fact that he is a replica, and from the way it sounded like to me, is he's almost kind of like the replica of a replica. Like, that's why he's supposed to look off. Like, it sounds really bad to say, but almost a little inbred. Like, it's something, like, when you see his sprite in skits, which I guess I gotta say in the audio, the skits aren't voiced just like in Symphonia. That sucks, but it is what it is. His image in the skits looks perfectly fine. But when he's on the screen and you get that model, his eyes to me are like very wall-eyed. They're a little too far apart. He just at all times looks off. I think a couple times I said, I was like, he looks a few cards short of a full deck. It just bothered me. And like with the way he talks, he said, like, his voice acting sounds completely normal. So like, I don't know if it's intentional. And like I said, when I see the way he looks in the skits, I'm like, I don't think it's intentional. I don't remember if I said this or Clay said this. I think Clay said this, so I want to give him credit for it. It's like his model is like the Matt Damon puppet from Team America. Because I know, which I still need to watch. I'm surprised I haven't seen that movie. But I know the joke is that Matt Damon's character is like a Pokemon. All he ever says is Matt Damon. And I've seen an interview with Matt and Trey where they said the reason we did that is because his puppet just came out looking stupid. And so we just made a joke with that. It's like, yeah, all he can do is like, he's just capable of saying his name. To me, that's kind of the Ion thing. It's like his puppet just came out a little wrong. But the rest of him, like his voice acting looks fine. His voice acting looks fine. His voice acting sounds fine. His animated form looks fine. It's just the puppet is weird. Everyone else, once I kind of got used to the look of the game, I thought they looked fine. The overworld, I don't like how it looks, especially in the early game, where the main color palette, it's like this kind of putrid green. It just felt very empty and lifeless when I didn't feel like that's really the vibe they were trying to get. Like, it wasn't something like Arise, where it is this kind of almost post-apocalyptic world, and you're like, yeah, you start in a fucking volcano, like this fiery volcanic wasteland, there's not going to be a lot of people. And then you go to the ice world, where everyone is super, like, it's this fucking Orwellian state where people don't want to go outside. Yeah, you're not going to be seeing a whole lot of life around you, but both those areas still look gorgeous. Like, Arise is fucking beautiful. This one, to me, like, just the colors, everything looked super muted. At times, it looked very ugly. But then, when you actually go to a location, like Grand Kokma, and you've got, like, this place built upon the water and shit, or the Cheagle Woods, or the Isle of Ferris, which is a place that's intentionally very derelict, but I think it looks really good. So, on the one hand, I kind of want to talk shit on the visuals because of how I don't like the overworld, but I do feel like the level of detail in the locations themselves does make up for it. Okay, so that's... Let me get a water. My brain is going off in all kinds of directions right now. I need to kind of center it for a second. So, if this was just about the game, if the presentation with this was just about the visuals and the audio, it would get a pretty good score, because I do think, though, while there are a couple weaknesses there, it's still quite good. However, there is something else I need to talk about. The performance. For me, I feel like this feels more of a performance, excuse me, I think the performance is more of a presentation issue than a gameplay issue. But fuck, it's bad. It's abysmal. I almost said abyssal as a pun. I'm saying it anyways. I'm like, that sounds so fucking stupid. I hate it. But it is abysmal. Going in, performance in combat is fine. It's not a big deal. Performance in a town or in a dungeon is mostly fine, with one exception. I'll go and talk about the exception. It's saving. Saving the game takes like 30 seconds. I think we timed it. Me personally, I am an active saver. I love saving my game all the time. I just got done talking to an NPC. Let me save real quick. I just did some shopping. Let me save real quick. I just got a fucking item. Save real quick. I love doing it because I hate I hate losing progress. I hate having to redo shit. So anytime I go a little too far without saving and it bites me in the ass, I'm always like, fuck, like I thought I had saved, or I'm better than this, what the fuck. But Abyss is a game I actively didn't want to save because I had to sit there for 30 seconds. Eternia, let me save my game. It's done. Lunar 2, like Lunar 2, which is the game I am playing right now, I saved my game. It's like that. It's super fucking fast. This was ungodly slow. And I felt like my time was being wasted. Because 30 seconds of dead time is a lot. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you are just sitting there like, yeah, like I want to go ahead and turn the game off, let me save, or like, yeah, I want to save, but I want to keep doing shit. Nope, just sit here for 30 seconds. Like, if you played Symphonia, remember the ending of the game after the final boss where Lloyd does his goodbye, and then he's just quiet? It's this, I don't know if it's the exact same amount of time, but like, it sounds like it's about the same amount of time. Every time I'm trying to fucking save, that's a problem. On top of that, when I am in the overworld and I'm trying to just go places, whether I'm on foot, whether I'm on the ship, or whether I'm on the airship, it is so slow. I feel like the game is chugging. There were times like I either was like trying to turn the ship or turn the airship. What were they called? It was the Albior, I think, was the airship, and the Tartarus was the name of the sea ship. So I'll try to call them like that to avoid any confusion. I remember just like trying to turn them felt so long. And then the actual movement, so fucking slow. And then there's these weird areas. It's the Megiora Highlands. I don't remember what the name of the swamp was. I think those are the only two. There might be a third I'm not remembering. Where it's a dungeon, but it plays like the overworld for some reason, and I have no fucking clue why. Which means you're slow as fuck in these areas, and God, it's just unpleasant. I hated it. I don't know why. I don't know why they did it once, let alone fucking twice. There are also, like, the loading, kind of like with the saving, there were times where it felt like the loading was, like, really bad. Like, it would just, like, all right, come on, cool, you finally fucking finished so I can do shit. It got annoying. Like, for me, I feel like that's part of why, by the end, I'm like, this was 49 hours, it really didn't need to be. I've probably added an entire hour just by saving. It wouldn't surprise me. Maybe even more. And then with the long load times as well, it's like there were several moments where I just felt like my time was being wasted. And not just because, man, I don't care where the story's going right now or anything. It's like, no, like literally there is dead time that is being wasted. And it bothered me. It consistently bothered me. Also, I don't remember how many times this happened. It was specifically the second act of the game, after Exiriuth, where you are now playing back as Luke and you're trying to get your party members back. There were times when I would leave a location, and so it would load. I'm like, okay. Boy, it's taking a long time to load the overworld. I can't hear the music anymore. Sorry, brain stop for a second. Normally what happens when you go to the overworld, you can hear the music. It might kind of die for a second, but then you'll get the overworld music. The screen will fade to black, and then you'll be out in the overworld, blah, blah, blah. Here, it would be a freeze frame, the fucking end of the Breakfast Club, the guy's pumping his fist. My character would just be in a freeze frame. The music would stop, and I would just hear the disc whirring. And I'm sitting there going, did the game just fucking crash? I don't know. I don't hear the music anymore. The screen is frozen. I'm hearing the disc sound like it's trying to fucking bust out of there. And it's been on this screen for a while. I know this game can take a while to load. It certainly takes a while to save. Oh, fuck, I think the game crashed. I don't know if I just saved because I never want to save in this game because saving takes so fucking long. Let me give it a few more seconds because maybe it is loading. Oh, look, it finished loading. I don't know why that took 45 seconds, and oh my god, I almost just stopped it because I thought the game had crashed. That happened to me 4 times, all within that section of the game, and I really, really don't know why, but man, it was just unfucking pleasant. So if I'm being honest, I would probably give the presentation a 3 out of 5. I have to take a lot of points off for the performance because for me personally, this might just sound like minor nitpicks. And for you, maybe these are minor nitpicks. Maybe these weren't even problems when you played the game. And again, maybe these are fixed in other versions. But the version I played had these problems. And for me, they never stopped bringing down my experience with the game. Did they ruin the game? No, it's a couple points off. But for me personally, it made the game more of a slog than it really needed to be. But moving on to the gameplay. I guess let me go and say this. When it comes to gameplay, I really need to talk about 3 areas. Combat, dungeons, and traversing the world. I did a normal 3 this time, not whatever the weird shit I did in the Sea Cats video. Starting with combat, for me it started really rough. And the big reason for that is because it just felt like it took a while for people to get skills. Like I had said, while we were playing Abyss, I was also playing Eternia by myself on the side, and I was like, wow, I feel like I'm getting skills for my physical attackers really fucking fast. Not as fast for the casters, but that's just because casters have their own weird kind of shit in Eternia. But then when I had played Symphonia a couple months ago, I remember even thinking the same thing. I was like, man, we're getting skills and spells a lot quicker than I had remembered. I thought it was a while before I got some of these abilities. Damn, I must be flying through this fucking game. Abyss, I think Guy had 2, maybe 3 abilities by the time I was done with the first act of the game. Kind of the same with Annis. Natalia, I don't think had that much shit. I think Luke had a small amount, but I really wanted to experiment with the characters. Because that was something I did in Symphonia. I was I really want to give everybody a bit of a chance and see what I like. In Eternia, I didn't do it as much in Eternia. Pretty early on, I was I'm going to play Reed, and then I'll play Farah every now and then, but I'm mostly stuck with Reed. And then there were a couple points where I was I'm just going to play Merity and just nuke this boss, because this boss is a problem. But here, I made an active point, I want to try everybody. But when you get a new character, they just had, no fucking skills. They had, 1, maybe 2. It was cool. This is kind of fun, but I want to, I don't know, see and do cool shit with them. And it felt like it would take so long for them to get another skill or two that by the time they actually had a list of like cool things they could do, it's like, the appeal of playing this character is lost because I'm now stuck with who I want to play as. That being said, the little bit I did play of everyone, they seemed pretty cool. Annis does seem like she's the Regal Farah character, like she is a fighting game character. There's a bunch of combos. It seems like if I had stuck with her, I would have had a lot of fun. Tyr is your healer. Jade is your Kratos Zelos character. You can do a lot of physical shit. He does a lot of black magic. Guy is your Lloyd character, doing the demon fangs, sonic thrusts, all that kind of shit. Luke, he has moves that are like similar to that, but they're still a bit different. I guess in a sense, he kind of reminds me of Yuri. Not nearly as laggy as Yuri. God, Yuri felt awful to play in this area. There's a reason I stuck with Repeat, holy shit. But I thought Luke was pretty fun. But I almost exclusively played Natalia once we got her. I don't even know why. I think I just liked shooting arrows. I thought it was fun. But once I got Natalia, I was like, this feels right. This is the character I want to play as. And then, yeah, there were times when Natalia would not be in the party, and then I might be like, sure, I'll play Luke for a bit, or I'll play Guy for a bit, but when she was available, that's pretty much the only fucking character I played, and I thought she was really fun. Combat. Once you do, get skills and get characters that you like, it is really fun. I did like fighting monsters. I loved fighting bosses. I have to check, were there a bunch of fights that I wrote down as being fun? I'm not sure. Not particularly. I just kind of wrote down any fight with the God Generals and Van because, for the most part, yeah, those are all really fucking fun. The fight, okay, so a couple that do stand out in my mind. Yes, both Van fights, especially his first one, super fun. The fight with Largo, Arietta, and Lagretta, in the Snow Mountain, that shit was really fun. The first fight with Lagretta, because, okay, another thing I kind of have to say that bothered me, it's not really a combat thing or a dungeon thing or even a traversal thing, but it's still a gameplay thing. While we didn't get a lot of skills early on, we also did not get a lot of money early on either. We were just poor. So we had a lot of trouble both getting equipment and just keeping ourselves stocked with items. So when we fought Lagretta the first time, actually Clea dropped out, so I did the Lagretta fight. I ran out of items really quickly, and by the end, it just became a duel between Natalia and Lagretta, and I won that as Natalia, and it was really fun and really satisfying. So on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, I fucking hate that I don't have items. I don't have money, so I can't buy items, so I can't actually revive my party. This fucking sucks. It did lead to a really fun moment, though, so I have to give it that. And I have to shout out the fights with Sync. He's a fucking problem. Holy shit. Motherfucker is fast. Motherfucker just have, no lag on any of his ability. Lagretta is Lagretta the quick. Sync is the fucking quick one. Holy shit. But, oh yeah, the boss fights are super good in this game. So combat overall, I think, is really strong. And the dungeons, I can't remember a lot off the top of my head. I remember places I went to. I remember the marsh, and the marsh sucked. I remember the Meggiora Highlands, and that sucked because of their weird overworld thing. But, the Isle of Ferris, I remember being pretty fun. Chigo Woods was super early, but it was fine. The Ice Mountain, I thought it was fine. I remember I can't remember which one it was, because there's the Radiation Gate and the Absorption Gate. The one at the end of Act 2, I don't remember which one that is. That's a really fun dungeon. The final dungeon, when you actually do go to Hod, I remember that one being pretty dang fun too. It feels like a Kingdom Hearts final dungeon. Specifically the world that never was, just because it is filled to the brim with bosses. And for me, for a final dungeon, I love that kind of shit. That is awesome. I feel like, in general, the dungeons, for the most part, were either pretty inoffensive and simple, or actually really engaging with the shit they were doing. So, like, to me, like, I'd probably give it full marks for its dungeons. But the next part of gameplay, the traversal, gonna be venting again. Like I said earlier, just the performance when traversing the world is dog shit. It's fucking bad. It is atrocious. I hate it. I remember, especially once I got the Albior, I was like, cool, so these are... Let me put it like this. A lot of the traversal is there's a lot of backtracking. It's like, cool, you've been here, now you're going to go back here, now you're going to go back here, now you're going to go back here, which is not inherently a bad thing. But if I'm going to a lot of places I've already been to, I would like to be able to fast travel. It's like, cool, you have an airship, this is a place you have already been to, your character should know the route, would you like to go there quickly? Weirdly enough, there were parts of the game where it would just be like, hey, this is the next place you want to go to. Do you want to just teleport there? Like, yeah, 100%. I don't want to fucking walk or fly or whatever because it's slow as hell. Teleport me. But other times it just wouldn't. And again, if it's to a new place, I completely understand. That makes sense. But if it's, again, like going to an old place that, okay, I don't know why the option is there sometimes and not all the time. There is a part in the game where you do just get fast travel. It's like the start of the third act. It was 35 hours in. And I remember just thinking to myself, why did this take 35 hours? Like, if I had just gotten the Albior, it's like, cool, you now have an airship. You can fast travel to any places you've been to. Makes sense. But no, it's like, hey, now there's an autopilot system, and that's a cool thing that we added, so now you can fast travel. I'm like, but why did it take an autopilot system? Again, all you literally have to say is, you've already been here, you can just push a button to skip the travel, because you, the player, have already made that travel before. You've kind of, like, you've passed your test. Here's your reward kind of thing. We're like, no, just keep doing it, asshole, until you get to this part of the game. Okay, this just feels pointless. And if the performance in this area of the game wasn't so bad, I wouldn't mind it as much. So that's problem number one. I guess also problem number two. You can't save your game when you're on either the Tartarus or the Albior. With the Albior, that's a relatively minor inconvenience. You can't just park anywhere. I tried. There were just some times it's like, oh yeah, you just can't land your ship here. But why? It's just like an open space. This makes no sense. But okay, I guess I can't land my ship right here. Like, I remember it was in some, I think it was like either the absorption gate, the radiation gate, it might have been both. I tried to land it on the landmass right below it, and it was like, no, you can't do that. Oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to save my game before I went into the dungeon, but I couldn't do it in the air. So let me do it on the landmass right here. Oh, I can't do that. I guess I gotta keep flying to these islands. I can't land on these either. What the fuck? Okay, now I can save. Now I gotta go all the way the fuck back. This is stupid. You can't do it on the Tartarus either. But the Tartarus is worse because, well, the Albior, you can't land everywhere. It felt like I could land most places. The Tartarus, you can only land in ports. Now, that might sound like it makes perfect sense because, like, well, it's a ship. Of course you can only land a ship at a port. You can only land a ship at a harbor. Why is that an issue? For me, the only reason it's really an issue is because I had just played Eternia, where that's not how that worked. There are ports and harbors in Eternia. You can land the Von Eltia almost anywhere. Again, every now and then it's like, yeah, you can't really land here and then just go on land, but almost, like, I would say 90% of the land masses just, there you go. No problem. Now you can do shit. Also in the Von Eltia, I could fucking save. Why can't I save here? That's what really bothered me. If I can only land on ports, fine. That's how the world works. It's something that you explain that to me. I'm like, that makes sense. I get you. At least let me fucking save anywhere in my boat. because this is just a pain in the ass. Why are there so many things in this game that are just a pain in the ass? Why is my ability to save a pain in the ass? It's either I can't do it, or I can, and it takes 30 seconds. This is dumb. I'm sorry. Maybe this is an issue that is fixed in other versions of the game. That anywhere on the overworld, whether you're land, sea, or sky, you can save. Maybe the fast travel is a lot better in those versions. That'd be great. That's fantastic. Love that they fixed it if they did. I played the version where they didn't. I played the version where these things annoyed me. They sincerely annoyed me. Maybe that... Sorry, I was just trying to check. I was like, does that say 36 or 46? It's like, there's no way I've been ranting for 46 minutes already. Like I said, maybe these for you, if you have played the game, weren't problems. Maybe it does just sound like I'm the old man screaming at nothing like this is the most minor shit. Why did it bother you? They just did. These bothered me a lot. Another thing that bothers me, which I will probably say in every fucking Tales video. Have I called this game Trails at all? I don't think I have, but I know I almost did. But I know I said this in Eternia. I know I said this in Symphonia. I hate Tales of Games maps. The Pokemon Town map to me is like a perfect game map. Here's your world. This is where you are. This is where this town is, this town is, this town, etc. These are all the different ways it connects. It might be really linear, and it's like, yeah, this shit is blocking you until you do this thing, but you can't do that thing until you do this thing, and then you can't do that thing, and that thing, etc., etc. It's fine. But I can look at that at any time and go, this is where I need to go. It felt like there were a few points in the game, not many, because it's usually very good about telling you, this is where you gotta go, this is the direction. 9 times out of 10, that's not a problem. But there were times, I remember it's when Ash and the crew, it's like, this is after Xeriuth, after Yulia City, Luke and Tyr stay behind, everyone else goes with Ash. They're like, we're going to Belkend. Belkend is east. Cool. So I'm in the boat, I'm in the Tartarus, and I'm going east, and I go somewhere, I'm like, is this where I'm supposed to go? And you go into the place, and they're like, this isn't where we're supposed to go, and they immediately leave. Which does not show up on my map now, where this place is. So if I gotta go there later, which I did, I think it was like Orton Cave or some shit. But like, I went east, found a new place, and now I don't even know where the fuck I found, so I need to go there later. It won't show up on my map. Because when the game tells you, go to this new place, it's not marked at all on your map. You just have to find it for yourself. Once you find it, then you can see like its coordinates, which I hate that personally. It's like, here's where it is, like, coordinate-wise on the map. Cool. For the first time, dipshit, find it yourself. Go east. If I go east enough, I eventually end up being west. So I must have missed it, but I'm not exactly sure where I missed. And because it's not already on my map, it's just like, this is it. Just try to get there. I don't know where the fuck I'm going. And because this is a boat, I can only land in certain areas. Oh, I just found a port. This is the one. Nope. This is not the port we're trying to go to, fucker. Keep going. Then where the fuck even am I? I remember that part I got lost fucking hard. I had to just Google a game map. I know I had to do that a few times, and... Sorry, I thought I felt a bug. If I have to actively Google the game's map to know where I'm going, for me that feels like a problem. Not just in a sense of like, game, I am lost, what thing do I do? But it's like, I know what I need to do. I will be also the first to admit, I have a terrible sense of direction. So for other people, this one really might not be a problem. This might just be me. But I think the maps in these games tend to be fucking awful. And Abysses was bad. Excuse me. Oh yeah, I forgot about those issues. I thought I was done ranting about the traversal, but I wasn't. There were a couple other things. So sometimes when I parked the Albior, it would disappear. And I had no fucking clue where it was. And as it turns out, it would be conveniently moved without me trying to do anything about it to the nearest port. There was one time I parked it right outside Sheridan, and one time when I parked right outside Doth. It only happened twice, but insert Phineas and Ferb nickel thing here. Why the fuck did it happen once? There were so many times where I would just park it somewhere, and it would stay there, exactly where it was. But weirdly, twice, I went back, I was like, where the fuck is my ship? This is where I parked it, like the exact spot. Why is it gone? I don't know if anyone else has had that problem. I was very confused. Especially the second time. Because the first time, I thought maybe it was a glitch, and there was no explanation. The second time, I then went into the ship, and I, tried to fly, and it was like, hey, flight's been disabled. And this is after I got the flight stone back, because there is a part in the game where you get the Albior, and then you can't fly with it anymore because plot reasons, which, annoying, because this game is very, very annoying. But fine, there's an in-universe reason. I guess I just have to use the shitty boat now. Fine. This was after I got the flight stone back. There were no problems with it. And it was just like, yeah, fuck you, flight's been disabled. It was after HOD came into the sky, so I guess it was like, it's fucking with the phonons and the phone belt or whatever the fuck. I don't know. But then, not long after that, it worked fine for the rest of the game. There was no reason for it. It just said, yeah, fuck you. You landed on land, so we're gonna park it over here, and now you can't fly. Why? That's why. Hope you're having fun. Well, now I'm not. Like, when I was in a dungeon, there is one thing about dungeons I hate, that there is no dungeon map. For the most part, dungeons are simple enough that I didn't need one. But every now and then, there would be points where I'm like, I'm getting kind of lost. Especially if I was doing a dungeon a second time. Because there's quite a few you go to again. I was like, yeah, the first time, it felt like doing it a lot more naturally. It was kind of easy to figure out where I needed to go. Doing it again, now I'm just fucking getting lost. Where the fuck do I go? I remember, again, I don't remember which one. It's the radiation of the absorption gate. The second act of the game where you fight Van the first time. Fantastic dungeon. Loved it. Needed a fucking map. What do I give gameplay? Like I said, I think combat is really fun. I just think it takes a little too long to get your skills. I think dungeons are also really fun. I would have liked a map. It's not a game-breaking thing that it doesn't have it, but it would have been really nice. But the traversal is fucking awful. I honestly think I'd also give it about a 3. So right now, with the presentation and the combat, it's a 6 out of 10. Which feels about right. Like I said, I do like it. I do enjoy it. There's a lot of good shit here. But boy, the things that bother me, even if they seem minor, really, really bother me. But this is Tales of the Abyss. This is a game that is known for its story and its cast. And a game that starts rocky, but gets amazing. But I am going to take a little break. I'm going to go ahead and get something to eat, drink some more water, and then hopefully I can finish talking about this game. Sorry, let me rephrase that, because that made it sound really bad. Like, hopefully I can be done talking about this piece of shit. More just, hopefully then it will only take like one more take and then I can be finished with the video. I don't want to make it sound like I'm about to just rip this game a new one, because I have some shit to complain about. I won't deny it, but that's not the case. I have a lot of things I want to praise about its narrative as well. So, when talking about the narrative of Tales of the Abyss, the first thing I want to talk about is the setting of the game, the world of Aldrich. The reason I want to start with the setting is that's kind of what the first act of the game is about. In terms of the plot, it's Luke. It's not even that he gets kidnapped, because the whole thing is an accident, but he essentially ends up getting spirited away from his home of Batical, the capital of one of the two big countries, Kimlaska Landvaldir. And it is him trying to get back home, meeting a bunch of people, and really figuring out how the world works, both in terms of its like political structure, the major factions and countries, as well as a lot of the terms for like the magic system and shit. So the basic of it is there's a handful of continents, but there's three major powers. Kimlaska Landvaldir, which is this one like really big country. You have Malkuth, which is the other big country, and the two of them are not at war, but they're getting pretty fucking close. The third and final major power is the Order of Lorelei, which is the church. And there's... Sorry, Bahamut is trying to catch a bug over there in the corner, and so I'm just seeing him jumping and swiping at it. There's three major factions in the church, which I don't believe they all really have a name, so it's easier to say, like, these are the people who they follow. You have the side following Ion, who is the head of the church in the fact that he's essentially... Oh, yeah, like, I want to say he's the Pope, but I'm not sure if Ion is the Pope or Mose is the Pope. I think it's Ion is the Pope, like, he's the big figurehead. Then you have the faction following Grand Maestro Mose, who I suppose is more of like the Grand Cardinal. And then there's the third faction, which is following Van, who is the head of the Oracle Knights, which are essentially the Papal Knights, the like church police, the church militant. And the way it starts is it's like, okay, there's the Mose faction and the Ion faction, with Van almost kind of playing peacekeeper, and then by the end it's like, no, Van is a third faction. Mose thinks Van is still working for him, but it's very clear that, no, Van is the motherfucker in charge. He is the head bitch in charge of what's actually going on. And I do feel like when we are focusing on that, of the power struggle going on within the church, and how the church is influencing things in Kimlaska Landvaldir as well as Malkuth, and the war that's starting to happen, it's some really interesting shit. I was getting super invested. The other major thing I need to talk about, which is kind of a good segue into the things about the setting and all like the magical terms and shit, is the score. So in this world, there are a whole metric fuck ton of prophecies. It can be a personal prophecy about, like, this is the shit you're going to do today. It can be just the prophecies of what you are going to do in your life. And then on a much bigger scale of, like, this is the prophecy of this country. This is the prophecy of this continent. This is the prophecy of what the fuck is going to happen in the whole world. Excuse me. Sorry, I had a burp going. And all of this is referred to as the score. And they might call it the planet score, your birthday score, etc., etc. But that is what the score is. And the score doesn't always say good things, because good things aren't the only things that happen. This war is part of the score. So there are people who look at it and go, well, the score says something really shitty is going to happen. But if you look past this, like, all right, in this part of the book, war happens and a bunch of people die. But afterwards, peace and prosperity for fucking decades. So, you know what they say, I mean, you can't make an omelet without cracking some eggs. We can't get prosperity without people dying. Which, I'm pretty sure was the, like, motivation of the main antagonist in Mission Impossible 6. What was it? It was, oh, hi, Princess. It was like, without great suffering, people can't know true peace or some shit. Really? Are you really do you need to go outside? Jose, can you let Princess outside, please? Can you let her outside? I think that's what she wants to do. I'm recording.
on, Princess.
Princess, please go. Thank you, Jose. Anyways, so there's... The score is something that is really important. The leaders of the countries feel inclined to follow the score, but are also like, we're kind of shitty. Moe's in his faction is like, the score is... It is literally the word of God. It's the will of Lorelei. I'll talk about that in a second. Pin. It's like, but it's essentially the will of God. We have to do it. Ion's faction is like, the score is the score, but I mean, it's pretty fucking bad. And Van's faction, as you find out later, is I hate the score, and the fact that people are willing to follow it, even though it leads to shit like this. Like, people are willing to go to war and massacre each other because a fucking tablet says so. That's fucking stupid, and the people who do that, they shouldn't really be making decisions anymore. If you are that willing to let something control your life, you shouldn't have a life to begin with. All that shit is super interesting. I love it. Then you get all the other shit. So this game, I don't know if they ever use the word magic. Instead, you have phonic arts. You don't have elements like earth, air, wind, and fire. You have phonons, which is, it's essentially the same shit. I believe there's 6. It's earth, air, fire, water, light, dark, and sound is the 7th phonon, which, let's be honest, it's the only one that fucking matters in terms of the plot. They talk about how there's all these, I don't remember the term they give them. In basically any other game, they would be the summon spirits. In this one, it's the, like, manifestation of each phonon. Because when I heard them, and I was like, oh, shadow for darkness, sylph for wind, gnome for earth. Cool, like, these are the summon spirits. I can't wait for that to be a thing in the game where we gotta go fight them and collect them. What do you mean that's not something that happens in Abyss? Okay, I guess none of them matter except Lorelei, who's the head of... Okay, because there's 2 names that get thrown around a lot. Lorelei and Yulia. And if I remember correctly, it's Lorelei is the 7th phonon's god. I'm just going to refer to Lorelei as God. That's the easiest way I can explain it. That's how I really understand it. I actually don't know if it's a he or a she. I think it's a he, so I'm gonna use the male pronoun. If I'm wrong, then, please correct me. He is the god of sound, which is, like I said, kind of the only important one. Yulia was a prophet? Or it was like the first head of the church? Because the score is referred to as Yulia's score, so I believe it's like Yulia was a 7th phonist. So, phonist, someone who can cast magic and shit. A 7th phonist means you are proficient with that element. And Yulia wrote the score, and so Yulia is like the first pope, but Lorelei is God. If I remember correctly. And then there's other shit, like the planet storm, which is a bunch of shit in the sky. It's like a ring, and I don't remember how it was explained or what they said the purpose of it was. From what I remember, and just context clues from playing the game, it's what allows humans, or it's what allows phonists to actually use phonons. It kind of like channels them or some shit. There's the Sephiroth, and yes, I kind of giggled every time because I can't play a JRPG and hear the word Sephiroth, and, not think of a tall dude with long silver hair and a sword bigger than the Empire State Building. Let's call a spade for a fucking second. But the Sephiroth are these giant trees in the underground that lift the planet up by shooting memory particles out, which are like the crystallization of the planet's memories and its life, and you find out later that that's what the score is. It's the planet's memory, which means that the future is in the past, I guess, because it remembered the future. If you can tell, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Because half the time when they were saying all this shit, I had no fucking clue what they were talking about. The game, to me, does a really bad job of this. And the reason it does is, number one, they throw a bunch of terms, and it's a while before they're actually fully explained. Now, some of them, like a phonon, can pretty quickly tell what that is. Like, okay, these are the elements. Got it. There's 7 of them. Blah, 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 blah. Or the score, you can pretty quickly tell, okay, this is like a prophecy, and it can be a personal one, or it can be on the level of the whole planet. Excuse me. You travel to Sephiroths frequently, but I don't remember how it was first explained, and it was kind of never truly explained again, so every time I was like, okay, I just kind of remember they're like light trees that are pushing up the planet or some shit, okay. And every time memory particle was brought up, my brain just said, it's the life stream. Cool. Because that helps me, because I played Final Fantasy VII against Sephiroth. I'm like, I know what the fuck the life stream is. I don't really know what it means for this game. It's like, so they're like volcanoes pushing up the planet's memory. What the fuck did I just say? And then there's a part, like the entire second act, is Van's like, I want all of the humanity. I was trying to say the world, and then instead I said the humanity, which just makes it sound stupid. I'm trying to destroy humanity because humanity doesn't deserve to exist, because anyone who follows the score to this degree should not exist. So I'm gonna try and like basically make giant earthquakes and like lower the land into the cliff off, I think is what it was called, which is, it's called Tales of the Abyss. I'm just going to call it the Abyss. It's essentially like the world under, because I guess this is a Hollow Earth game. Sure, dog. I don't know shit about Hollow Earth theory, but okay. It's like the lands below. And the plot of the second act is Van wants to lower the world, and we're going to do it for him, because if we do it, we can do it safely so people won't die. And that makes sense to me. It's like, okay, we are doing the thing that he is trying to do, but we're doing it safely so people don't die, because we got to make sure people are okay. Totally get it. Makes sense. So you go to these Sephiroths, and the way it happened, this is how I understand it. So there's this thing called a hyper-resonance, which is what happens at the very start of the game. That's the spiriting away. It's essentially like, oh shit, like if phonons of different frequencies come into contact or some shit, who knows what's going to happen. You know, when these two did it, they teleported. You can also use it to make big-ass explosions, because, sure. They're trying to... I know what I want to say, but it's like so insane, I feel wrong saying it, even though I'm like, that's literally what I saw. They see all the Sephiroths like connected, like on a TV, it's not actually like a TV screen, but essentially kind of like projected. Like, okay, this is how this is programmed. Luke, use your hyper-resonance. He does it like this, like it's a sideways Kamehameha, which I grew up watching Dragon Ball, I love that shit. Use your hyper-resonance to delete the line of code written up there and start rewriting it so it does something else. So hyper-resonance can teleport people, it can make giant explosions, and it can hack the planet and completely rewrite its code. What the fuck? Like, I don't know how much sense that made, and it kept happening like it made perfect sense. And again, I will fully admit, I was playing a good chunk of the game with someone else for a while, who was very much not enjoying it. So it's very possible that there was a lot of shit early on that was explained, I missed it, and it kind of fucked me up later. There is also a non-zero chance that there was shit that when I was playing by myself was very thoroughly explained, and I just kind of missed it, or it just didn't really click for me. Because maybe this is something that makes perfect fucking sense. Yes, a hyper-resonance, you can do all kinds of crazy bullshit with it. That's fine. It does make it sound very bullshitty and plot devicey, but it's like, cool, it allows you to. It allows you to hack the planet. Maybe there's a version of that just makes more sense when you say it out loud. But literally, like, what I was watching is like, this is kind of dumb. Because... how do I want to say this? I don't want to just say it's dumb because I don't understand it, because I'm the one that actually sounds stupid in that case. But it's, from what the game has explained to me, how the fuck are you actually able to do this? Like, you can rewrite the code of the planet? Why hasn't Van tried doing this with, like, stuff before? Like, he's a 7th bonus, too. I mean, he can't just make a hyper-resonance by himself, but Luke can because he's a replica or he's a clone. Like, well, why is... Huh? But Sync is also a replica, but I guess he can't do it because he's really fucking weak. I think I'm just gonna move on to the next thing I want to talk about. I don't really know what else the fuck to say about this part. Again, to kind of sum up the setting, I think when you get into the actual, like, political conflicts, it's super interesting. But when you start getting into all the bullshit made-up terms, I start losing it. Because I'm like, okay, I know what the fucking element is. I know what the fuck magic is. Now you're just overcomplicating it for no reason, which is fine. It's whatever. But I have to remember all this shit, and then there's new shit I have to remember, which is not very well explained at the start intentionally, which just muddles the issue more. So then by the time it's actually explained, it may or may not make sense anymore, because I've come to my own understanding of what this shit means. And sometimes I'm on the money, sometimes I'm not, and I really hope I didn't miss anything, because then anytime they bring this shit up, I am fucked. I've heard that Final Fantasy 16 has a feature that it's like an active lore thing, where anytime in a conversation, like if someone were to bring up the planet storm, you can click a button and be like, I'm sorry, what does that mean again? I want to make sure, cool, this is what it means, I'm caught up. I fucking wish Abyss had something like that, man. Because there were so many times, like, anytime I'm hacking the planet, I'm like, does this actually make sense? Or are they just throwing so much technobabble at me, they're hoping I'll swallow it? Because I'm so fucking tuned out right now. Can we go back to the cool political shit? Because I'm invested. Can we get back into, like, the character stories? Because I'm starting to get invested. And I'll talk about those in a second. But I do want to go ahead and just touch on the themes. Because there's a lot of themes in this game that I think are really interesting. First and foremost is just Destiny. Which... haven't played that one. I've played Destiny 2, but not actually Destiny 2. We'll get to Tales of Destiny at some point, probably next year. But that's the whole thing with the score. It is a prophecy, it is a destiny, it is a fate of, again, a planet, a country, a world, etc. And can you break it? If it is foretold that there is going to be a war, excuse me, can you actually stop it? And if so... what are the consequences of that? If you break fate, and fate says something really bad is going to happen, but then something really good is going to happen. If you break it, so they're like, cool, we avoided the bad thing, that also means the good thing won't happen either. So when you have characters who are like, no, like, we have to uphold the score, it's all we know, and look what it's going to lead to. It's going to be worth it. I kind of get it. I'm not saying I support it, because I do think that, no, that is a problem. But it is interesting. Like, there's a scene really early on. It is actually right before the first Lagretta fight, where she's essentially saying, like, no, like, we think people who just blindly uphold the score are stupid. Like, they're sheeple. 100%. They are just being herded by this thing, and they don't think for themselves. I don't think that's any way a person should live their life. Nobody should live a life like that. It's stupid bullshit. I don't remember exactly how he phrased it. It was something along the lines of, no, people don't just use it to live their lives and not think. They just use it so they have something to consult, so they know the best way to live. And I remember hearing that and thinking, you just said the exact same shit, my dude. You made it sound a little more palatable, but I don't think you actually said anything different. The way the score is presented is very much, this is something to control people, and that's why most people follow it, because it's comfortable and because of kind of like the peer influence and the church's influence of you gotta listen to the score. And when they focus on that theme, I think it's fucking great. Not to say that like I hate the other themes though, because like I think they're actually all really good. Speaking of the next one is Atonement. Luke fucks up. He gets a lot of people killed. And the entire set, like the next 2/3 of the game are him going, I can never make up for what I did. I feel like I understand that. Like, I have a lot of blood on my hands. Me dying does not change that I killed people. So I can't just, like, kill myself or sacrifice myself and everything is automatically okay. Me helping one person does not make everything okay. I genuinely don't know if I can ever, I guess, break even in that regard, or come out the other side saving more lives than I took. But what I have to do is make sure I spend the rest of my life working toward that. Like the first time you go to Xeriuth, and every time Luke sees somebody, like someone choking of miasma or dying of thirst or of hunger, he's just like, why the fuck am I doing this? He's like, I've got something better to do. I'm the ambassador. Master Van told me I'm gonna be a hero. Let everyone else do all the grunt shit. And then I think it's Engave is the next place you go to after Xeriuth, like when he's back in the party after he's got his hair and shit, and he's like, what do you need me to do? You need me to do this? Fucking bet. You need me to do this? Fucking bet. I want to help. I want to make people's lives better. I want to make them easier. What can I do? And it, to me personally, it's so fucking endearing. And I know I'm not the only one, because I know people love Luke after the first third. I was like, yeah, I get it. For me, it really, really worked. And then when you do get to the later parts of the game, where it is that he's like, you know, I could use my hyper resonance, and again, this kind of like some technobabbly bullshit, but essentially, I can use my power to destroy this miasma, but I'll probably die. Should I do it? If I do, I save a lot of lives. And I know this doesn't, like, make up for Xeriuth, but maybe it is the right thing to do. Like, if I have the power to save people, I probably should. Do I want to die? No. I feel like for the first time in my life, I actually care to live. I have found meaning in my life because I have people I want to share it with. Like, I've got all my friends here. I've made meaningful connections now with my family. But maybe it's still the right thing to do. And Luke actually talking to the party members about that and their reactions to it, like, that was really moving to me. I don't know if I'd say it's one of my favorite parts of the game, or if it is just dead ass my favorite part of the game. It's when it happens in Doth. I loved that. There's also, I think it's like right after he kind of talks to the world leaders and they're like, okay, if you do this, Luke, like, you save the world, but we mean this as honestly as we can. There is no pressure. If you say no, we have other methods. You don't have to do this. And even if you say yes, that you will do this, if you back out of this, we cannot stress this enough. There is no judgment, dude. We understand. We are asking a lot from you. And we appreciate it. But please, please do not feel pressured into doing this. You don't have to. And his friends, like, begging him, your life to us at this point, because, you know, early on, none of them would have thought this. Probably not even Guy. It's like, but, like, to us, your life is more valuable than, like, anything else. And him still saying, but this is what I need to do. Because if I said that I want to help people and make people's lives better and save them, if I have the power to do so, I really fucking need to. And I love that shit. Like, there's a few moments where, and again, it's like right after he talks to the world leaders, like before he talks to his party members, there's a skit, and it's just Luke. And I felt like I was listening to, like, a Shakespearean soliloquy. I don't remember if, like, the actual writing of it was quite that eloquent, but I remember liking it a lot. But it was just, like, Luke standing in the middle of the cathedral, just talking straight to the audience about, this is what's going on in my soul right now. And it happens a couple more times. I was like, I like this. This feels really good. Like, finally, this is the shit that people are talking about when they say Abyss is phenomenal, that this character is great, that this story is so good and it's fucking worth it. So I'm remembering that M&M Christmas commercial, but it's like these moments, they do exist. The next major theme is about, I guess, like a person's value. I think I literally have it in my notes. I just wrote Mewtwo. Because I could sum it up with Mewtwo's quote from the end of the first Pokemon movie. Which I might be getting slightly wrong. I apologize. But I believe it is something along the lines of, I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are. Because while you've got Luke's theme of atonement, and I should probably, real quick before I get to the Mewtwo thing, Luke is not the only character atoning. You have, like a lot of Jade's character is that. He's like, I've done a lot of shady shit in my life. I've killed a lot of people. And my research has led to replicas, which I'll be talking about in a second. I know there's a lot of just unethical, shady shit that I am a part of, and I want to help you guys to kind of make the world better. You have Annis after betraying the party, and the reason she's been betraying the party is because Mose is like, I can kind of kill your parents. Like, they're mine for all intents and purposes. You want me to kill them? Do you want me to throw them in prison? Or do you want them to be, I don't know, intact and free? Do what the fuck I tell you to do. Like, that's some interesting shit. You could argue that Van's thing is a thing of atonement as well, is that not that he is trying to atone, but he is essentially trying to get humanity to atone, I guess in a sense, for its sin of sloth. It is slothful to follow the score just like without thinking, and the punishment and atonement for that is to just kind of get rid of all humanity. You go a bit too far, we'll talk about Van specifically, but Luke's isn't the only character trying to atone, but to me, he is the big one. So then, moving on, the Mewtwo shit. It does not matter where you were born or how you were created, all that shit. You are who you became. You get that with Luke. He is a replica. He is a clone of the original Luke, who now goes by Ash. And he's one of Van's droogs until he's like, I'm not going to be. And so he's essentially a third party. I have a lot of connections with Van that I can use, but I'm trying to stop him. But I fucking hate you, Luke, because you took my life, you son of a bitch. So I don't want, I'm going to help you, but I'm just gonna be an asshat the entire fucking time. But Luke Like, he starts off as just this shitty brat because he's literally a 7-year-old child in the body of a 17-year-old because he does not have any memories. He doesn't know what the fuck he is. But by the end, he is a good person. He is someone who am I? I am Luke Von Favre. I am friends, with these people. I am the son of the Duke. I am the son of the Duchess. I do think that as the original, Ash has more value than me. He's been around longer. He's their actual son. He's the one who actually made that promise with Natalia. He's Van's actual student. He is stronger than me. But while he's more valuable, I still have my own value. There are still things I can do, and if I can be the sacrifice so he can live, I'm willing to do that. It's really interesting to me. And then you have Natalia, who is the princess of Kimlaska Landvaldir and Luke's cousin, and therefore also Ash's cousin, who finds out, maybe around halfway into the game, ish. Maybe 2/3? No, it's not 2/3. I'd say it is probably more like half. That while she is the princess because she was raised by the emperor and his wife, not their biological kid. Because their biological kid, I believe, was it was either stillbirth or died really quickly after. So essentially, they just took someone else's baby and yoink! You now belong to the Emperor now. And so that's how she was raised. She didn't know that. The Emperor didn't fucking know that. And she has this crisis of conscience where she's like, wait, I'm not actually my father's daughter. I'm not actually a princess. And who the fuck am I? What the fuck am I? Which, this is one of my favorite scenes, but I fucking hate it. The reason I hate it is the Emperor's whole thing of well, you're not actually my daughter, even though I raised you, and it's you didn't do anything sus. I didn't do anything. I mean, you got a kid still. But it's it's not that I was actively manipulated or that you were manipulating me, but I guess I still gotta, execute you because Moses is telling me to. That did not click with me on any level. This is stupid. His motivation to me makes no sense. This is your fucking daughter, you idiot. However, as the crew is escaping Batical, and all of the citizens are just showing up and going, you are our princess, what the fuck do you need us to do? But I'm not your princess. I'm a fake, I'm a fraud, I'm just a commoner that got switched out like a fucking changeling. I'm not what you think I am. They're we don't care. You have done so much for us. You have vouched on our behalf. You went personally to Exariuth. Your dad didn't want you to go, but you had to go to see what the people were going through there and to do everything you can to help them. You've helped with hospitals, schools. I don't remember all the specifics, but people, the regular ass people are fighting the soldiers to keep them away from her so she can escape because they love her that much. It does not matter that she is a princess. It matters that she is Natalia. And I loved that. It's this is fucking beautiful. Let's go. The final theme, at least for me, the ones I can remember that really stuck out, which only happens at the very end of the game, is racism. Racism is bad, which it is. That's not me trying to discount that. With replicas, and how replicas are essentially seen as second class. Which I thought there were some things that they did with it. I was that's super interesting. I just wish this wasn't the last 5 hours of the game, where it's not that it necessarily feels tacked on, but it is okay, now that replicas are more of a, now that they're kind of a planet-wide thing, yeah, it makes sense that, you would want to talk about people's reactions to them. It's a little too late for it to really sink in with me, though. Or, even though maybe some of Luke's stuff about like his life and his soliloquies come in late, they definitely feel earned. This was just a little, not completely out of left field, but I think I literally said to myself, like, oh, I guess we're doing this now. But some of the things they do with it are super interesting. Like, they talk about how there was a riot at a funeral because someone had died and their replica showed up at the funeral and everything went to shit. That is super interesting to me. There's a scene where people are talking about replicas and just what they're like, and I was like, yeah, like they cause a bunch of looting, they don't know what the fuck they're doing, it's led to fights, people have died, they're a problem. But Luke, we're not talking about you, like you're one of the good ones, like, it's the rest of them that are like that. It's not exactly phrased like that, but it's really, really close. Like, oh man, that is so uncomfortable. And I 100% believe, like, this is intentionally uncomfortable. This is good. I wish it was there longer. I wish it was there throughout the game, or at least, like, throughout Luke knowing he's a replica, which is, like, 2/3 of the story. I think it maybe would have been stronger, but, again, the few things they do with it, I do think work. So I've talked about the setting, I've talked about the themes, and I've kind of talked about the plot. I just don't really have much to say about the plot. It really is the first third. Go back home, get to learn about the setting. Second third, oh shit, we gotta hack the planet. And then the final third is, well, we killed Van, now what do we do? Oh fuck, we didn't kill Van, he's... So, you kill Van, and then he falls into the core of the planet, and then he's like, oh, well, when I was in the core of the planet, I met Lorelei, I met God, who I'm trying to kill, by the way. And as my body and my phonons are literally disintegrating, God enters my body and saves me, so I'm alive now, I guess, and the God that I wanted to kill is now the reason I'm alive, and I'm still gonna try to kill him, so... It's kind of awkward. What? What? It's like, I heard what you said. Why did any of that happen? How did any of that happen? We could have ended at like a reasonable 35 hours game. So why did this happen? But of course, then I wouldn't have gotten some of the great shit, like Luke's soliloquy and whatnot. But I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I don't really like the plot. It just kind of feels like the game tells me shit needs to happen, and I don't really understand why or how. I'm just kind of going, sure, dog. But let me talk about the cast. Let me talk about the Jade Gang. Starting, of course, so I kind of, as I have them written down in my notes, I have a member of the Jade Gang, which I fucking love Dist. And then right next to them, I have a God General that they are associated with, which I gotta shout out. I love that there's 6 main party members, 6 God Generals. And for 5 of them, these are like... here is your foil, or at least in some regard, it's like, this is what makes you two, like, a perfect match and is super interesting. And then there's Guy and Sync, which I just don't really see. But starting with Luke and Ash. I've already talked about Luke. I really like this character. Even in the first third, there's times he goes too far. There's times where he can still be really fucking annoying. But knowing the twist going in and that this is genuinely a child who knows nothing of the world, has no memories of almost anything. No wonder he's an asshole. He's kind of like, yeah, he treats everyone like shit, but they treat him like shit too. And again, the fact, like, this is a kid who's been taken from his house, and it's like, I just want to go home. I don't want to deal with all this big conflict or anything. I just want to go home. And all of you guys, like, all you really do is just tease me and talk shit and don't explain things to me. And then when I don't know things, you're like, how the fuck do you not know, idiot? And it just makes me feel awful, and like it makes me more annoyed. I get that. And then you've got shit where like he sees someone die in front of him because this is a 7-year-old child who's never been outside, sees death and is terrified, and then essentially everyone else is like, why are you such a little bitch? It's like, yeah, you gotta do it. It's kill or be killed, fucking loser. Like, am I supposed to like these people? Because I'm gonna be honest, like, I kind of don't like anybody in the first third. They get better, a lot better, but I'm like, you're all just unpleasant. Like, aggressively unpleasant. This is fuck. But when Luke decides to change, it is a change for the better, and it is consistent. There are still kind of moments where like he might be a bit bratty, but it really does feel like someone said, I want to change, and is doing it. And I really like the character we get by the end. Ash, on the other hand, I don't like. I kind of went back and forth. Like, I get his issue with Luke. It's something that makes a lot of sense. You took my place, and I'm not happy about that. I don't have to like you. I'm not going to like you. Excuse me. Perfectly justified. He's still close to Natalia. This is his childhood friend. This kind of his childhood crush. Get it. But, and like, he does a lot of clutch shit, but he's such a dickhead. Every time. I don't remember what scene this is, but there's a point where Luke is just kind of saying, like, he's pretty down on himself, where he's like, look, like, I get it that I don't have value, but you have value, blah, 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 blah. And Ash is literally like, why do you talk like that? Why do you have no confidence? You need to believe in yourself. The fact that another version of me is just talking like that bothers me. Which in a vacuum, sure, it could be like, you're supposed to be me, act more like it. But every fucking time he sees Luke, it's Drek this, replica this, incompetent this, inferior this. It's essentially the conversation reads like this. Oh my god, you fucking inferior piece of, like, insufficient bullshit. Why do you constantly refer to yourself as an inferior, incompetent piece of bullshit? Gee, Ash, I fucking wonder why. Like, even the fucking fight between them sucks. I'm sorry. I feel like that is a spicy take. The music's phenomenal. Oh my god, I love that song so much. The fight itself, it's a one-on-one fight in a Tales game. I don't think those are fun. I think they're just kind of... I mean, the Lloyd Kratos fight is still pretty fun. But I don't super care for them. It's just like, I don't feel like Tales was really designed for this kind of combat. The problem for me is knowing the fight was going to happen. My understanding of it was it is a duel to the death between the original and the replica, who have never really been able to see eye to eye, who have a bunch of problems, and it is essentially them settling, this is for all the marbles, for who the real Luke is. It's me or it's you. Let's go. I'm like, that's really interesting. What it actually is, it's like, well, shit, Van designed this room so only one of us can go forward, and the other has to stay behind, and Luke going, cool, I volunteer, you go do shit. And he's like, oh, and then Ash going, oh my god, stop doing this. You know what? We're gonna fight, and we're gonna settle which of us is Luke, and like, work out our bullshit. And Luke going, no, like, we literally don't have to. A, I'm volunteering, and two, I don't really have anything to work out. Like, I've made my peace with who I am. I've made my peace with my homies. Like, we've established this. You're Ash. I'm Luke. Why are we fighting? Like, we don't really need to do this. And Ash going, no, shut up. We have to do this. Like, sure, dog. Okay, just whatever makes you happy, asshole, I guess, ashhole. I feel proud of that. I shouldn't, but I do, because I just don't like this character. Then we get to Tyr and Lagretta. I'll talk about Lagretta first. She does nothing for me. I read that her story and like her thing is that her score said that she would fall in love with Van, and she hated the fact that her love and her emotions were predetermined. And so her thing is she's siding with Van to destroy the score so people can be free to live on their own and feel their own emotions. But I guess that while doing this and working for him, she did fall for him, so she still fulfilled the score anyways. Which sounds really interesting. I really like that. I don't think this was ever said in the main story. I don't remember a single scene with Lagretta that does that. Even like right before you fight her, she does say some shit about like, you know, people should be free to feel their own emotions, but not really explaining her whole shtick. And I was just kind of like, man, if I didn't know, I would just feel nothing for you. And it reminds me a lot of Wazy from Azure, where this is a character with a super interesting backstory, but his backstory is locked behind not only an optional event, but essentially an optional mechanic. And because of that, it's like, to me, his backstory is non-canon, just because, like, even knowing about the mechanic and the shit I had to go through to see it, I somehow still didn't even unlock it. So I'm like, okay, this is essentially non-canon, because trying to do it, I just couldn't. So here, it's like, yeah, this character's motivation is just not shared in the main story? Maybe it's in the anime, maybe it's in a side quest, I don't know. I'm like, that's a problem. Her relationship with Tyr as, like, you know, Tyr's commanding officer, and being someone who is very close to Van as Van's second, the way that Tyr's very close to Van as Van's sister. I do like that. I just wish the really interesting thing about her was actually, you know, talked about in the main story. Tyr, first off, I don't really get her relationship with Luke. I think for me it's the fact that he's literally mentally 7. This is just icky to me. I'm sorry. It just is. I don't like it. Especially how, like, when you talk to Guy after Luke's like, I'm thinking about killing myself, and Guy literally says, like, you are a fucking child. You are literally 7 years old. You should not be making these kinds of decisions. And the fact that you want to do this pisses me off. Because if you really want to, I can't stop you. Fuck. And, like, I really love that. And then, like, later with Tyr, he has this scene that's, like, pretty romantic. I'm like, remember, Gabe, remember a little bit ago when you were talking about how he's literally 7? Did we just ignore that? I don't know about this, man. And just a lot of her, so, like, their romance I don't super get into. Some of the, like, ways she'll treat Luke early on, I'm like, I get it, he's a brat, but you're kind of not helping either. I don't super like you. But she does still kind of have her moments, like, when she, like, with Mew, when she's like, oh, this is the cutest thing ever. Or Anis's doll, where she's like, no, this is also, like, super cute. Like, I think that shit's pretty funny. But Tyr's character is, she is very stoic, very cold. Or at least a very cold exterior, but a very warm interior. The moment where I decided that I do like this character, because I liked what they were doing with her story in the second act. It's like, while you're going to all the Sephiroths and memory particles and shit, she is... I'm not even going to try to make sense of it all, because I don't super remember. It was probably well explained, but whatever. Essentially, every time you are doing this, she is dying. Because of, like, shit she's absorbing into her body, because she has a similar DNA to Lorelei or Yulia, which I guess is why Van could absorb God, but sure, dog. But it's killing her. And the fact that she is saying, hey, I am willing to do it to save people, because what my brother is doing to them is a problem. And if anyone can stop him, it should be me, and if I can, I will. It's like, she and Luke are very similar in that regard, and I like that. But to me, the moment where I realized I think Tyr is awesome is the end of the second act of the game, where you think you kill Van, and Van, like, falls into the court, and she is just stone-faced. Now, a little bit after, you know, like when everyone kind of turns their back, the facade breaks. I don't remember if she cried, but like you saw the emotion. But the fact that everyone else is like looking super intense and she's just feels nothing seeing it was so badass. Like, okay, Tyr, you're cool with me. Like, you're that. I gotta give you a fist bump. Like, that was some cool ass shit. So moving on to the next characters, that'd be probably Jade and Dist. So Jade is just the troll, just constantly talking shit, constantly teasing people. I think out of everyone, he was probably the closest I came to really liking a character in the first third. And yeah, in the rest of the game, it's just, yeah, here's more of the same shit, but now you actually get some depth about his role in, he's essentially the father of making replicas, something that he fucking hates, something that he regrets, and seeing how this research can be perverted and what it can lead to. How he did it, my understanding of it was a friend of a friend of his, Professor Neblem, I believe was the name. Professor Neblem died or is believed to be dead. And so he wanted to make a replica to essentially bring her back and have this person back in his life. And also to forgive him for, I think it was like some sort of accident. I don't remember what the accident was or if they had said. And he just kind of got to a point where he realized, if I bring her back as a replica, then there's nothing to forgive. Not in the sense that it means all of my sins have been forgiven and that I'm absolved, but there's nothing to forgive. This is a different person. I haven't done anything wrong to them. Forgiveness from them means nothing. All of this means nothing. And that actually kind of hit me kind of hard. I was like, you're actually a pretty fucking interesting dude. Okay, this is really cool. I also love his relationship with Dist. It's like, these are two people who grew up. They know each other. They grew up together. They know each other really well. They're all childhood friends that are just constantly shitting on each other. It's more Jade shitting on him and then Dist going, I'll get you, Jade. Dist is just kind of a joke. And if I'm being honest, I think he's a really funny one. Like, he's just constantly getting shat on. They're constantly making fun of him. The part where he takes the flight stone to the Albior and is like, come meet me over here, Jade gang. And they're like, cool. So, based on what he's saying, the flight stone is here in Doth. He's just all the way over there to do his dumb shit. Tell you what, it's really cold there. Let's just get the flight stone and leave him there. Let him freeze to death. Let him ruminate on his actions. And then when you go there later, it's like, yeah, he's dying of hypothermia. It's like, that's actually really funny. Then a little bit later, when you kill him, oh god, so you fight his robot, you destroy the robot, and so he hits the self-destruct button, is like, okay, but if I'm gonna die, I'm taking you all with me. To which he then goes, Professor Niblem, I'm coming! And he says it's like that. And it was everything for me to not start laughing. And like, I know I have the brain of like a 9-year-old man, but fuck, you can't just yell out, hey, I'm coming, when it sounds like you're right about to. But what killed me, what fucking sent me directly to the Shadow Realm, made my life points go ding 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 ding, was Luke, without skipping a beat, going, we won't let you. And which, you know, at that point, you know, they like knock him and the fucking robot into the air. They literally send it blasting off like Team Rocket, and then it explodes and just dies, seemingly dies. I'm assuming he's dead. But then, I'm coming. We won't let you. It's so funny to me. I was like crying, laughing. I'm doing it now. It is so like it's so perfect. It had to have been intentional, but I'm also like, that wasn't intentional, was it? Was it? Because like that's so funny. But I like these two quite a bit. After that, I'll probably just go into Anis and Arietta. They're both the kids. They are both former guardians of Ion. Arietta to the last Ion. Anis to the current Ion. I mean, and they actually know each other and actively dislike each other, constantly shit on each other. It's like they actually have a pretty fun rivalry. Arietta tends, for me personally, I actually thought her fights were really fun. Oh, the other thing about them that's really similar is the relationship with their parents. Arietta was raised by a Liger, who is, I believe, the first boss of the game. Yeah, because I don't think there was a boss before that. So, like, the first boss of the game is you kill this thing. And so afterwards, she's like, I hate you because you killed mommy. Which is sympathetic, but also Arietta also will just, like, fucking murder people for other shit. So you're like, okay, your sympathy is starting to go down, kiddo. But I think that's interesting, and how Anis is also tied to her parents, because like I was saying earlier, Mose has them under his thumb, and Anis is his mole as a result of that. I actually thought that shit was really interesting. Anis, she's very annoying, but she's very intentionally annoying. She's like, wait a second, Luke's rich, my family is poor, I want money. And I feel like the reason she wants money is very sympathetic. My parents are in a lot of debt. I need to be able to pay that off so they can actually be free. I get it. It makes sense. And she's constantly flirting with Luke, which is uncomfortable, but it's intentionally uncomfortable, which to me does kind of make it go more funny than annoying. Although at times it can kind of be both. After the Xiryu thing, she was the one that was the most anti-Luke. Because everyone else, after Luke cuts his hair and is like, I want to change, Tyr was willing to give him a chance. Jade was like, I really don't want to fucking deal with this kid. But was able to come around pretty quickly, be like, you know what? I think I can see it. Jury's still out, kid, but you know what? Well, like, we'll let the jury deliberate, but the prognosis isn't looking too bad. Guys like, Luke, you're my homie. I kind of fucked up by leaving you. I fucked up by leaving you to your own devices. Let me fix that. And Natalia going, you are my childhood friend. Kinda. It's you and Ash. It's a little confusing, but I do want to give you that chance. Anis is just like being a piece of shit about it. She is definitely my least favorite of the main cast, but I feel like by the end, I did come around to her. Next, I would say, I'm saving Guy for last. Well, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just go and talk about Guy. So Guy, I just did not really care for a good chunk of the game. I was like, so, you're Luke's attendant and you're his friend, but I just don't really feel the friendship between you two. I don't know, it's fine, I guess. And then you go to Grand Kokma where like that, and then the shit happens where it's like, oh yeah, so, Guy actually really hates you, and like there's a part of him that wants to kill you. Well, this is fucking fascinating. Why? Well, I think I almost went goofy there for a second. Well, my home, I was, royalty, I don't know if it was royalty necessarily. It was, at least nobility of this country called Hod, the island of Hod. And as part of the score, Hod had to fall. So my family was murdered right in front of me by yours, Luke. All in accordance with the score. And the reason, cause I think this is the scene where he is remembered why, his issues with women, it might be a little later. He's like, oh, the reason I'm terrified of women, them touching me freaks me out, is because my sister gave her life for me. And the maids did too. And for hours, if not days, I was covered in their bodies and in their blood. And I had forgotten that. And now I remember, and the fact that the reason I'm so scared of being touched by a woman is because I associate that with death and this severe traumatic memory. But my mind has perverted their sacrifice into being something to be scared of. And now I just feel ashamed. That was really fucking interesting. And anytime he's talking to Van, and Van's like, dude, I also grew up on HUD. Guy, if you want to join me, you're Gucci, man. Like, what do you need from me? I want to help you. And I'm like, no, you're a piece of shit. Like, you're a fucking psycho. Fuck this shit. Made me really like him. The part where he's talking to Luke and he's like, you're the kid. You shouldn't have to make these kinds of decisions. As a kid, I don't trust you when you do make these kinds of decisions. Why? How can you so easily just say that your life isn't worth it when there are so many people here who would look you in the eye and tell you you are more important than life itself? Why? It's like, that was actually fucking beautiful, man. This is good shit. Are you my favorite character? This is awesome. And then there's his god general, which is Sync, where they're like, well, Sync's a replica of Ion, so it's not like they have that connection, because Guy's not a replica. Their fighting styles are completely different. I mean, both of them are trusted by Van, but one's like someone that Van really took in, and Van didn't really take in Guy. I mean, almost kind of, but the connection here is kind of weak, so you're both just kind of the extra member of the team, I guess. But yeah, Sync's whole thing is like, yeah, I'm a replica of Ion, and I was supposed to be made for, like, blah, blah, blah purposes, but I'm just not that good at it, so, which is ironic, given that he's, I think, the strongest member of Van's army, including Van himself. I think Sync actually puts up a better fight than Van. He's like, yeah, and so because of that, I basically just hate everybody, and I'm a massive cunt, and that's it. That's all Sync is. But the scene where he is talking to Annis after Ion dies and starts using Ion's exact cadence just to fuck with her, that was pretty dirty, but it was like you're a rat bastard, but I gotta respect that. But for the most part, Sync just really didn't do anything for me. Like, alright, whatever, dude. Which brings me to Natalia, the last member of the Jade Gang and the main cast, and Largo, her god general. I said Guy might be my favorite character, but I honestly think it is Natalia. Her story of, like I was saying earlier, learning that she's the princess, but not really the princess, and how so many people came to her defense immediately. I really liked that, because it is, it's not the circumstance of one's birth are irrelevant. It's what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are. It is the fact that she is a princess that is not just sitting on her throne. She has actively, almost her whole life, been trying to help people. Her first impression, she does come off as very snobbish, and even one of her win quotes going, oh, how pitiful. I'm like, you just come across as really fucking unlikable. But relatively quickly, though, you see the kind-hearted soul that genuinely, like Luke in the next 2/3 of the game, just wants to help people and make their lives better. And I liked that a lot. Also, this is the character I played as, and I thought she was really fun. I got to kick a lot of ass. I think this is a really good and interesting character. Largo is her biological father. And his whole thing, he's the big badass knight. He's just kind of a cool dude. And then you get the backstory. I remember just kind of saying to myself, like, damn, backstory got hands. He's like, yeah, like I was a mercenary. I think that was it. Like, I was a mercenary. I was out of town. And I came back and I had this really bad feeling. And then I was trying to find my wife and our infant daughter. And I couldn't find either of them until I came down here to the harbor. And I found my wife, drowned in the water. Someone had taken our baby to give to the Empress because her baby had died, and ours was a suitable replacement. And my wife, unable to cope with that loss and me not physically being here, it was too much for her, so she killed herself. And you know what the worst part is? We didn't really want to have a kid in the first place. She was so frail that I wasn't even sure she could survive giving birth. But we were told that's what the score says, that we had to have a baby, a daughter. and that our daughter would be one of the most, like, important people in, like, terms of the planet and all this shit. And I believed it. And clearly, I wasn't wrong. You seem like you are a lovely person. You've done a lot of good, and I respect that. But I look at the score not as this wonderful thing that brought you into the world, but as the thing that took my wife away. So, if Van wants to destroy this shit, I'm all for it. I know that you are biologically my daughter and I your father. But this is the last time we'll have a civil conversation. Well, within reason, if we happen to pass each other, whatever, but that's not going to happen. The next time we see each other will be on the battlefield. Because you're not going to change your mind, and neither will I. So, either I will kill you, or you will kill me. It is what it is. No hard feelings on my part either way. And I really liked that. Again, to me, it's like, this is what I wanted from Legretta. This is interesting shit. I think hers is interesting shit. But that needs to really be communicated to me. Like, Sinks is just kind of like, yeah, no one ever really loved me and I'm a replica, and I don't really care for anybody. Arietta is, I lost my family and also I lost my ions, so, anything that can maybe kind of fix that or fill that void is good with me. Ash, well, Ash isn't really working with them. He's kind of his own bag of worms. And Dist is, I believe Dist was like, yeah, I want to finish Jade's research to bring the professor back. Like, I feel like there's genuinely really interesting motivations here. Not all of them sympathetic, but I think there's good shit. And then you get to Ion and Mose. You got the Pope and the Cardinal. The Pope saying, yeah, like, I think this... I remember saying earlier, to me, when Ion and Legretta were having their conversation, it sounds like Ion is kind of saying the same shit she is, but saying it better. But I think he genuinely believes, he's like, no, the score is not something to trap people, but it is something to kind of consult. You don't have to listen to it. You really don't. You're free to make that decision. But I mean, if something is telling you, if you do this, you're going to have a great day, you might as well do it. It only makes sense to do it, but you don't have to. We don't serve the score is there to serve us. Mose being the opposite, like, no. I am literally doing all kinds of backroom crazy bullshit to make sure this shit happens. These countries need to go to war. Malkuth needs to be destroyed off the fucking face of the map, because that's what the score says. I will literally turn myself into a monster, like, put 7th phonons into my body and corrupt it like it's a fucking X-sphere so I can read the score. Which, the game tries to make Mo's transformation sympathetic, with everyone being like, man, even he doesn't deserve this. I kind of feel bad for him. Like, okay, first off, the scene where he's flying around like an Oogie Boogie shaped balloon going, I score! Woo! Okay, like, I feel no sympathy here. I'm just laughing. This is goofy as shit. Is this still supposed to be horrific? Because it's not. It's just funny. But, like, no, he's a piece of shit. He's an awful person. I don't feel any sympathy for him. I feel sympathy for some of these god generals, not all of them, fuck you, Sink. But it's like, there is something here that I can sympathize with, that I can empathize with. Mose has consistently taken it too far, and is just an awful person, where this all feels justified. It feels like he got his. And the last character I have to talk about is Van. I don't like Van. No, okay, let me say this. It's not just like, well, yeah, he's the antagonist, like, he's a piece of shit. Like, the parts where he's manipulating Luke in that first third of the game, like, oh, this is some Frollo Quasimodo shit, and it's just, like, so deliciously deranged. Like, oh, you fucking bastard. But you've got this kid wrapped around your finger. Like, this is the shit I want to do if I'm able to go on Survivor. Like, I want to be able to do that. That's badass. Good job, Van. But it's when he says his plan. Now, he is able to articulate it a lot better later on, but essentially the way he first explains it is, I think the score is bad. The fact that we have this thing that says, this is what you need to do with your life on a micro and macro level, takes away our free will. Number one. Number two, people are so into it that they are willing to let fucked up prophecies happen. The reason Hod fell, because it was in the score and people needed to make it happen. The reason this shit happened in Xerius, okay, like that was me, but, excuse me, people weren't stopping me. They weren't stopping this horrible thing from happening, despite knowing full well that it was going to. How and when it was going to. There was no summit about, we have a prophecy, how do we stop it? It's, cool, how do we make sure it keeps going? I want to rid humanity of the score, of its sloth, and of its sin. And the best way to do that is to just destroy humanity. Did we miss a step? Wait. I hate the score. And humanity is bound by the score. So your plan is to just wipe out everyone. What? And I remember Jade immediately going is like, oh, well, it makes perfect sense to me. You know, if we don't have a human race, then we clearly won't be bound by anything. Well played, fans. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm like, no, that's exactly what you fucking said. Now, later, to me, he kind of clears it up a bit more, where he's essentially saying, I do feel that humanity is so heavily stained, we just need to start over. And that's what the replicas are. This is our second chance. It is still, because replicas are not bound by the score, like they're almost like a different race at that point. If we can make a new world of replica, if we can make a new world spotless from sin and truly start over, we won't be bound by the score, and people can actually have free will. I think that's beautiful. Like, okay, now you've articulated it. You don't sound like an idiot anymore. You still sound like a psychopath. You want to genocide the planet, you fucking crazy bastard. But now at least you don't sound stupid. So I have to give you some credit. But I remember kind of thinking about it. I was like, are there better ways you could do this? Are the phone stones, which is what the score is literally written on, like, are those indestructible? I genuinely don't know. I mean, if Luke can go and fucking delete the planet's code and rewrite it and go and again, it's a little more complicated when he's doing it to, like, destroy the miasma, but just do that shit and, like, destroy the miasma, and I don't even remember where that's coming from. I think that was a part that was well explained, and I just kind of wasn't super paying attention. I won't deny that one. But I'm like, wait, why don't you just have Luke or Ash do that and destroy the phone stone? It's like, humanity is no longer bound by the score because there is no score. Now, you can make the argument that, well, we're still bound by our sin. You're like, okay, but in that case, why not target the people who were the cause of it? Like, there is a scene where like, there's kind of a summit of world leaders, and Guy's like, why should we actually trust you guys? You let Hod fall. You were more than willing to let Xerius fall. And it was a scene with Guy that I thought was really fucking good. And it's like, the depth of his character is interesting. Why doesn't Van do something like that? Like, could he just lead a coup? It wouldn't surprise me and, like, kill the world leaders. Could he make replicas of the world leaders? I don't know what you really need to make a replica. Is it, I need the full body? Can you just do it with the DNA? Like, yes, with Luke, they had all of Ash, but it sounds like Van just kind of needed Ash anyways. And to me, it was like, I need Ash. I'm going to make a replica so he's not missed. And then if I can use the replica for some shit, great. But Ash is the key, and I need him. Can you make replicas of the world leaders and just do that? Like, could you have just at any point said Mose is a fucking nut job with how, like, willing he is to follow the score? Just off him and make a replica of Mose, or just make a replica of Ion that's perfectly loyal to you, like Sync. Now, Sync can't do all the magic shit, but, like, you have an Ion that's in your pocket that can be a world leader. You now have a Luke that's in your pocket because of how close you are to Luke and to Ash that could be the head of Kimlaska Landvaldir. Potentially, like, I know Natalia's the princess, but even then you maybe be like, well, she's not really the princess, but this is really the prince, so he should be in charge now that the Emperor's dead. Like, again, there might be still some hoops he has to jump through. I don't know how necessarily super easy it is, but I feel like Van didn't have to kill everybody. Or, like, that didn't really have to be plan A. I don't sympathize with him. I think he's just kind of a nutcase, which made kicking his ass really fucking satisfying. So when it comes to rating the narrative, I'm like, well, for the most part, I love the cast. I love the themes, and I really like the conflicts in the setting, but I feel like the actual plot wasn't something that super clicked with me. And so 3 feels too low. 3.5 feels about right. But I loved the end game enough that I will bump it up to a 4. Which would make 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 15 for the final score for Tales of the Abyss. Which I think is lower than Eternia. And I'm very mixed on that, because overall, there's a part of me that says Abyss should have a higher score than Eternia, because Abyss's highs are better than Eternia's highs, I think. But also, to me, it's like, well, Eternia's more consistent. Yeah, like, the world exploration in Eternia, like, there's a point where I just also get kind of annoyed with the ship, but it's not nearly as bad as it is with Abyss. And the game does not have the performance issues of Abyss. And I got into the plot a lot better than I got into Abyss. But Abyss is... I feel like Tales of the Abyss, to me, is the Tales equivalent of the Trails game Trails to Azure. Both games, from my understanding, are incredibly well liked within their fandoms. But I'm very mixed on. I think at their best, they have claims to be the best of their series, of the ones I have played, which with Trails, like, I've played everything but Kuro 2. At least the mainline games. And with Tales, I've only played 6 of them. But it's like, yeah, both of these games at the highest of highs, but for me, feel so wildly inconsistent across the board that while I can genuinely say I liked the game, I'm glad I played it. Excuse me, I genuinely don't think I love the game, although I love parts of it. So to reiterate my point at the start, right before I end the video, which is like 2 hours, holy crap, I do think there are really, really good parts of this game. I do feel like I was rewarded by the end. But I do think the weaknesses, to me, and like I said, some of these might be sound really minor. They might be things that for other people weren't huge problems. But for me, the weaknesses do hold it back overall from genuine greatness. But I did like it more than I disliked it. And I am glad that I finally delved into the Abyss.